Before we get started, a big thank you to all of my supporters over on Patreon and on Twitch, with the Patreon people coming up on screen now. A big thank you to my legendary supporters Mike, Kira, Obi-Wan Kanti and Shao Quinn. Thank you guys for the support. I really appreciate it. If you would like to help support me and the channel, then you can head over to twitch.tv/mandatoryquest and drop a sub over there, or you can go over to patreon.com/mandatoryquest and become a Patreon member for some early access to some videos and some behind the scenes stuff. Hey everyone, quick note before we get started on this one. This was recorded straight off the back of my live stream and I had music playing throughout the whole of it. There's nothing, unfortunately, I can do to remove the music. I just had it playing. I kind of learned this lesson once I came to editing this, and in my future ones, I've actually now just recorded them without any kind of music, so I can cut around a little bit cleaner. But I didn't want to maybe leave a completely unedited video that maybe sounded okay because the music was consistent throughout, but then the video was twice as long. So hopefully you can forgive that sometimes the audio can be a little bit kind of popping in and popping out because of that background music, but hopefully that isn't too distracting for you. And in the future videos, this should be gone and I won't make this mistake again. So yep, onwards with the video. The Tinkerer, levels 1 to 5. We have talked a little bit about level 1 before, when I did my kind of initial review of the level 1 stuff. But we will just sort of check everything out anyway. Class notes, you have the right tool for any job. Whenever an ally needs some healing, you want to set enemies up with some well-placed traps, or you want to take a more direct approach with something a bit more explosive. Your large hand size gives you a significant amount of stamina, allowing you to play more cards with burns than any other class typically would. However, if you lose too many cards too early in a scenario, you may find yourself exhausted before the end. Some of your abilities let you place unique tokens on the map and have varying effects. Unlike traps, hexes containing one or more of these tokens are still empty and are not considered negative hexes for the purposes of monster movement. It's to do with the resolution of events, so that's really cool. Our kind of character actual traits. And health and everything, I think, remains the same, if I'm not mistaken. I think Tinker was always a fairly healthy character as well, anyway. It looks about the same to me. So we'll go through all of the level 1s now that we actually have them in a proper format. So Potent Potables, attack 3, range 3 with model, 46 initiative. On your next 4 single target heal abilities, add +1 target. And so, yeah, it is a burn on the bottom here, but not too bad. This is a very reliable, kind of like, this is your bread and butter type attacks, these types of things. And attack 3, range 3 is what I like to sort of see as the benchmark for any ability. So anything that's like attack 3, range 3 with something else, or it can get better in some way, is always generally like, yeah, this is going to be usable and be pretty useful. So model is one of the weaker effects in the game, unless you can pair it nicely with curse and stuff, but it does have some added benefit for sure. Yeah, I mean, it's a very usable top. Not much really to write home about. The 46 initiative is obviously not great. This isn't going to be a card you're going to want to use for initiative. But on the next 4 single target heal abilities, add +1 target is quite nice if you want to do a big burst of healing. And certainly means that you can probably use the top of this card for, let's say, like the first half of the scenario or something, or the first room, or whatever it is that you feel like doing. And because you've got such a massive hand size, you can burn cards as freely as you like, pretty much. Then you can obviously burn this to then heal up a lot of your buddies. This kind of thing will generally have a little bit more value probably in larger play groups than it will smaller play groups, just because you're going to want to maybe split up the healing a little bit more, but it still has relatively good value even on a 2-player party, because of course you're going to be able to just target yourself and an ally or a summon or whatever. So depends, but it depends on how much you like to split your damage around, or how, if you have a dedicated tank, maybe something like this is not so necessary because you're just going to chuck all your healing at one target anyway. But yeah, it's a nice effect for sure. Burn heals, yeah. Burn heals generally are great, and this is not a burn. I guess it kind of is. But I mean, in theory, if you're healing, let's say for 3, so this could be like 3, 6, 9, 12. And I'm a big fan of healing that is little and often. That's my kind of like my motto for healing. Little and often. You manage that, you'll be fine, right? Little and often. That's all you need to do. Harmless Contraption. So this returns. I think it's got a bit more movement this time, maybe, I think, the decoy. But summon a decoy, 10 health, 3 move. It's 3 XP, so that's more XP than it was before. I think it was just 2 XP before. And essentially, it's just going to be a decoy. It's going to soak some damage for you. You can heal it. It's going to move towards enemies as if it wanted to perform a melee attack, but it's not going to actually perform any action at all. But it's a bit of a damage sponge that can be healed back up again. It's an extra 4 health and an extra 1 move. Certainly makes it a lot more usable. So now, like with 10, it's probably going to hang in there for a little bit longer as well, which is cool. 74 initiative is a usable late initiative, and move 4 is great. So yeah, you may end up playing this card just for the move 4, and then you might be like, hey, I'd like 3 XP, please, at the end of the scenario, and there you go. You may not actually actively use this, but it's a good XP farm kind of potential for a move 4, which is always going to be useful. Flamethrower returns. I always liked Flamethrower. I always thought it was pretty good. PS2 and Wound, attack 3. Little 2 in front, 1 behind, create fire. Always like this as a burn. This was probably the least used, I would say, burn out of the 3. Like net shooter, ink bomb, and then probably flamethrower was like the, oh yeah, it'd be like maybe the 3rd one you would burn. I think that was mainly because it didn't have pierce on it before, I believe. So it was just a little bit, and obviously it's a bit harder to actually use because of it being a melee, where most of your other abilities are like kind of ranged. So it was a little bit like at odds as to what you were doing. 3 XP is really nice though. Grant all adjacent allies and self shield 1, which is, I believe, the same ability, I think, as Flamethrower used to be. I'm pretty sure it is. I think the initiative's changed on this card though. I don't think it was 16 before. Now the allies can move away and still have shield. I guess you can because it says grant all adjacent allies and self shield 1. It doesn't say all adjacent allies and self have shield 1. Is this grants word is quite important. Yeah, that does make it better. I mean, I guess the thing is it just makes it a bit more forgiving. I personally didn't have too much of an issue triggering it before, but it makes it more forgiving. Disorienting flash. The classic. I think it was level 2 before though. Level 2? I'm in level 3. Stun, target 3, range 3, gain 1 XP for each enemy targeted, and create light. This is a little bit different because I think Disorienting Flash before was, it didn't create an element, that's for sure. Level 2 didn't make light and was only 2 targets. Right, so it's basically been improved with an extra target. Yeah, it makes light, which is just thematically nice, I think. Even if it maybe doesn't have massive implications for you as a character, I think it's, I mean, it supports your team potentially, but also it just thematically makes a lot of sense. And the extra target, the extra XP. So, yeah. I mean, it's an improvement on a card that I think the problem was is that as a level up card, and it's great this has been moved to 1 because as a level up card, it was probably a little bit like underwhelming as taking it as an option. But if it's like a level 1 card that you can just run straight away, I think it's a pretty good option. So, and then the bottom is a heal 2 range 4, which is an excellent ability to have on the bottom because there's going to be many times when you're just going to, you know, sit there, attack someone for 3, range 3 with muddle, and then just throw a heal yourself or an ally or something like that. So it's going to be many opportunities when you don't need to move, and bottom heals are great for that. And this is a huge amount of range, really. Muddle adjacent enemies move 2 was the previous ability on the bottom of this. Yeah, well, I mean, that's pretty garbage. Egg Bomb, one of my favorites from the Tinkerer, I think probably one of everyone's favorites, is unchanged, I believe, apart from Muddle being added here. I don't think it had Muddle on it before, but this is the same. Was good before, was good again, and it has move 4 on the bottom of it. Net Shooter, exactly the same. Still great. And I think the bottom has changed slightly. Don't think it was quite this. Or it might have been like, oh, actually, maybe it was like immobilize something adjacent. So it's just the iconography is throwing me here because of course it was just written out, you know, immobilize an adjacent enemy, then move 3. The bottom just went from a move 2 to a move 3. Gotcha, okay. So it's just, they've just increased the move. Yeah, same initiative though, so really good. Stun Shot. Ooh, Stun Shot. This is a card that probably did need to get nerfed, you know, or changed, because it was an outlier as being too good. I do really like the more conscious effort. You can see it in Frosthaven, and you can see it here as well. That you're going to have to make the decision: are you going to attack something, or are you going to stun something? Like, it forces players to make the decision, one or the other. I think when you give the players the opportunity to attack and stun too regularly in one single action, then it, you know, it's like having your cake and eating it. It kind of like really lowers the decision-making bar. It means that it's a very simple decision to make. It's like, well, I'm always going to go for that ability because it does both things. And I don't have to worry. Like, if I miss my attack, it doesn't matter because I've stunned it, right? You kind of, it's a really easy safety net for players to like lean on and tool for them to lean on. So I really like the idea of just forcing players to make the decision. You're either going to stun something or you're going to attack something. And I think that that's a good thing to do. The lack of the enhancement dot here as well that was linked to it as well, because you'd usually just add a wound to this as well. That also made it very, very powerful. So it was kind of needed really to be changed, right? Move 1, loot 1, 20 initiative. It works. It's a usable loot card, right? Not like, you have to remember that in Gloomhaven there weren't very many usable loot cards, really. You kind of sacrificed a turn or an ability to use loot, and this is actually really good. A reinvigorating elixir. Heal for range 3. Super good heal. Very, very good heal. It's everything that you really want a heal to be at level 1, let's be honest. Apart from a target 2, which of course we can do with potent potables if you wanted to. The bottom is one ally within range 3 may recover all their cards from their discard pile. 3 XP and a burn. I believe this was adjacent before, was it not, guys? I think it was adjacent or something before. Kind of like a bit difficult to do. Yeah, this makes it way better. Like way, way better. Suddenly you just don't have that really annoying, like, oh, we have to plan 3 turns in front to try and get. Like, as a solo player, I think you could abuse it before because you'd line it up. But if you're playing in a group and everyone's got their own kind of, you know, agendas going on, or, you know, they're chasing battle goals, or they're doing other things, and they're trying to earn XP themselves, doing their things, yeah, it gets a little bit awkward and just trying to find that right point to do it. And I'm glad to see that the card recovery kind of element of this character is still here, because I always thought that that was quite a strong element to the character that made it more unique than other classes. Restorative Mist is a heal for range 3, target 4. Heal 4, range 3, which is a bit better than it was before. I think it was just like a heal 3, range 3 before, so it's a little bit better. 17 initiative, move 2, heal 1, target all allies at range 1. This is really what I would usually use the card for on the bottom here, as the way to remove things like poison or wound from your allies. It's really, really handy. The big thing that's changed here is that potent potables, go to the top. This used to add +2, I think it was, to each of your heals. So the trick is gone a little bit, which is where you would end up. This would actually end up being like heal 3 on all your allies, which was really good. So jet propulsion, got attack 2, target 2, range 3. This is super good. Very high value attack. Essentially is 4 damage, like raw stats here, and the range 3 makes it very easy to hit. Super good. I feel like this card was called like Twin Bolt or something before. No, I can't remember what the top of this card was called. But essentially, if you can get any kind of way of buffing, which I'm sure we will find in a minute, then this could be really, really good for you. 34 initiative, move 8 with jump. That's really pretty useful, actually. That's a huge amount of movement, 8. This kind of amount of movement with jump can sometimes break scenarios sometimes, because like a scenario might be like, haha, we're going to give you all of these traps or this hazardous terrain in front of you, or this difficult terrain. You're going to have to waste 3 turns in this room just trying to get through it or what have you. And then you're like, nope, see ya, I'm gone. And you just literally jet propelled yourself across the room and kind of just easily beaten the challenge that the scenario is kind of proposed. Get that chest before the scoundrel, then die. Yeah. Enhancement field. So this was before this bottom ability was mainly what we would use, unless we were doing some other kind of crazy combos. But top of enhancement field is place. I think enhancement field before was just like attack 3, range 3 or something. Boring. Enhancement field top. Place the enhancement field token in an empty hex within range 3. +1 attack to all attacks you and all allies perform while within range 1 of the token. Nice. So this is a really I mean, this is great for single room scenarios, absolutely, where, you know, you're not really going to be moving much from it. What I really like as well is that it is, you know, it's a kind of permanent and it's unremovable. This is the kind of cool thing about this. So usually these types of buff effects kind of come with a summon in tow. So you put it down and then, yeah, you have to put a summon down and then the summon is there. And if the summon dies, it goes away or whatever, right? The fact that you just place this down and then it's like, yeah, permanent. If everyone does this for the rest of the scenario in this space or these spaces, you're going to be able to get this buff. And that's, I think, a really nice change. It makes the Tinkerer a little bit unique in terms of their abilities that they can place down, and probably gives you a little bit of flexibility on picking and choosing one or two of these, depending on what scenario objectives you have. So if it's a boss scenario, then you absolutely probably bring Enhancement Field and you chuck it in a nice spot that will help your team with the boss fight. You and all adjacent allies add +1 to all your attacks this round. To be honest, this bottom ability in combination with jet propulsion was always, this kind of ability was always the play with the Tinkerer before. And it looks like it'll still be pretty good. The only thing is the initiative is, I mean, the initiative's fine. It's not ideal, but it's fine. The problem being that if you obviously want to do this combination, you go on 34 and you're kind of asking the rest of your team to go after 34. So it kind of puts your whole team in a little bit of a dubious position. Not everybody's going to want to do that. Toxic Vault Top, attack 2, range 3 with poison. Okay, Earth, this remains the same. And the bottom is attack 6, range 2. I think that's a little bit more damage, but is it slightly less range? I think it might have been like an attack 5 instead of an attack 6. I believe it's pretty much unchanged, this card. It was a good card back then, and it's a good card still now. Gas Canister, create 1 4 damage muddle trap and an adjacent empty hex, 22 initiative, move 4. This is, Gas Canister was the name of a higher level card, but I think the problem that the Tinkerer had with traps, and we talked about this a little bit in my previous video when we were talking about this character, is that the problem with the traps with the Tinkerer is they're kind of just a bit slow and they weren't particularly great, and they were sort of like, they were just a little bit under costed. Like, traps are a fun build to play with. Certainly, you know, I've learned that a lot in Frosthaven. It's very fun to play with. Rewards a lot of setup and you get big reward from it. But in Gloomhaven, they were just it was a combination of other abilities being too strong and the traps being too weak, and then you also having to spend multiple turns to trigger them sometimes. So anything that can kind of smooth that curve out is a win, really. This was a perfect card to give the Tinkerer at level 1, because you just wanted a trap that was reusable and that kind of had payoff. And 4 damage and muddle is a decent payoff, I think. Especially against certain enemies that have high shield, right? It's really good. I mean, a lot of the enemies that have high shield do have flying, but you know, there's yeah, you can still get some. Move 4 as well is also really good. So the other good thing about this is that it kind of gives a very usable bottom ability along with it, which I also really like, because then it's like, hey, even if I don't end up playing a trap build, even if I don't end up creating any traps whatsoever in this scenario, I've got a 22 initiative, move 4, which is great. So you got nothing to lose really by playing Gas Canister. A Volatile Concoction, strengthen, target 1 ally within range 3. The target may recover 1 level 1 card from their discard pile. This is a really cool effect. I really like this. You're kind of giving up your turn here, because giving up a top ability is not nothing. You know, it can be quite a big deal. But let's say you've got, you know, one of your other like allies has got a really powerful level 1 card that they can reuse, and this is just a way of kind of giving them that, like, hey, you got that great attack, let's do it again. You know, let's get it back, let's do it again. Especially if you're kind of like snowballing elements into each other, and like maybe the element's up, and you're like, hey, I can give you that card back because the element's still there, you can consume it and go again. Like, I think when me and Gripe were playing, I was playing the Mind Thief and Gripe was playing the Spellweaver, that ridiculous Spellweaver card, right, that was just consume these 2 elements and just kill everything. I mean, if all of the elements were still up, I mean, there's absolutely a card that you'd be like, give me it back, please. Like, it would be so good. So there's definitely still very powerful cards that are, you know, reusable, available to use this, but you're giving up a top action for it, which is a premium thing to do. You know, if you'd have to say like, okay, is this gonna be better than an attack 3, range 3 is like, you know, like a baseline comparison? And it absolutely can be, if you've got the right kind of team who can abuse it and the right kind of characters who can abuse it, which is why it's pretty well suited to be an X card. But I really like the effect. I think it's great. I think it's fun. Scoundrel, pick up strong card for the next turn. Scoundrel proceeds to pick up the loot card from the discard pile. Yeah. And they've got an even better loot card now. 18 initiative, fantastic initiative. Create 1/2 damage trap, poison trap in an adjacent empty hex, which can be improved, which is quite nice. Just with a +1, but can be improved with a +1. This one could also be improved with a +1, right? The reason why this is cool is we'll get to hook gun in a second, but essentially this gives us the ability to potentially do that double turn of being able to create a trap and then use it immediately, which is what hook gun could do for us. So we could finish an enemy off in a very nice, efficient way. 18 initiative, create a 2 damage trap, poison trap in front of us, and then attack an enemy for 2, range 3, pull them for 2, straight into that trap. Good at killing like enemies fairly efficiently and quickly. Some good guaranteed damage there. That amazing bottom loss on hook gun. Well, move 2, loot 2. I mean, this does basically get you all of the loot. Yeah, if you wanted a burn ability to get loot, it gives you 1 XP as well, which is quite generous, really, considering how much loot you're going to get. Yeah, this is a super good way of just hoovering stuff up towards the end of a scenario. Really, really good. Crank bow. So we're on to our first level 2. Here we go. Level 2. Attack 8, range 5, 3 XP, and a burn. In terms of a 1-use attack, crank bow was, I think, originally like a 6 attack with maybe less range. So I think that this has just generally had a buff across the board. But I didn't think crank bow was bad, terribly bad before. It kind of felt very much like a last-ditch attempt to kill the boss type ability, where you just like, okay, we need to kill the boss because we're gonna lose, or we need to kill this enemy because we're gonna lose. It felt very much like a last-ditch burn to throw in as the Tinkerer. Lots of 3 XP losses with this class, yeah. So the XP gain is going to be pretty nuts on the Tinkerer as well, which I think is a smart move as well for a support class, because then they're always going to be getting new card choices fairly regularly, which keeps the class interesting. And there was nothing worse than the Tinkerer seeing like the Spellweaver leveling faster than you and basically having more fun choices with their level ups. And I mean, the Spellweaver did have some dud level ups, but there's, you know, for the most part, it was a little bit frustrating being a support character, leveling up a little bit slower than everybody else, and then seeing them unlocking really cool effects while you just get more heals. For a class that maybe are on the more basic side, it keeps it fresh. The bottom is heal 2, target 2, range 3. That is as good as it comes in terms of healing as well. Really, really useful. Split across 2 targets. It means you can heal yourself, heal an ally, heal 2 different allies, heal summons, whatever it is you're doing. It will be useful at every player count, so that's really good. It's a great bottom ability. 23 initiative is also not bad. A repulsor gun. Attack 3, range 3, push 1. Interesting, there's push. A ranged push attack. Do we get many of those? Always feels like it's more of a melee tied thing. You know, we always kind of have pull with range, not like push with range. 35 initiative, move 2, push 2, range 2. So that's pretty good too. I mean, that's super good. This kind of ability is always good to have. It's always good to have. You always want a little bit of push or a little bit of pull in your team. It's just, it gives you flexibility and good for scenario conditions and stuff. I mean, out of these 2 cards, I feel like Crankbow Bottom is actually really excellent. So it's a more of a difficult choice. I guess it depends on like what you really want your role to be. I think either of them are pretty legitimate choices. I like Repulsor Gun's bottom though. Like the top I think is fine and will be useful. But the move to push to could be really good at setting up one of your big patterns or something. Like you could like move to push that final enemy into the net shooter and then you got the nice triangle and then like bam, hit them with the net shooter. I don't know. It feels like it might have a few more like inherent nice combinations with your cards you already have. You know, whereas this is just value abilities. All right, on to level 3. So teleportation pad. And this is one I think I've seen. Place 2 teleportation pad tokens in empty hexes within range 5. I think I've seen this. I don't know where I saw it, but I feel like I've seen it. Might have been spoiled at some point. You and all allies may treat the 2 hexes containing the tokens as being adjacent to each other during move abilities. This is another good example of something that could, in theory, break the game. Oh, we need to escape this scenario, guys. Oh no, what are we possibly going to do? We need to escape this scenario in like X amount of turns. Okay, don't worry. I'll just move 8 with jump. Like as far as I possibly can, and then I will drop teleportation pads here and here, and now you guys can move like, I mean it won't happen because there'll probably be a door in the way, but you know what I mean, like there's definitely shenanigans there, right? Teleport 4 on the bottom as well is excellent. It is it's interesting to see that teleport is in 2nd edition. I mean, I like teleport. I think it's great. But it is a slightly more complicated mechanic in terms of, you know, trying to figure it out. I think teleport might be something that a new player might, you know, originally kind of go, huh? What is teleport, you know? It might be a little bit awkward for them because it is different. And, you know, the fact that it's not a move action, it's something else. It may cause a few head scratches if you are coming across it for the first time. But teleport's great ability, so yeah, teleportation pad, great level 3. Stamina booster, remember this one. Heal 5, range 3. That's like a ridiculous amount of health for a non-loss. It's funny, isn't it? Like if you were to review stamina booster 1 versus stamina booster 2, it's like, yeah, we might decrease like the heal by 1, but now it's a non-burn. It's like, oh yeah. Back when the lateral way of thinking, I think, was, well, damage and heals have equal value. So an attack, if we're going to give a burn attack 6, then surely a heal 6 also should be a burn. 48 initiative is kind of rubbish. One ally within range 3 may recover 1 card from their lost pile. Nice. So here you go. That's big. 3 XP. This is non-recoverable, of course, to stop some kind of infinite looping shenanigans. It's a tough choice at 3, huh? I like the decisions so far. Like, they're quite tight in terms of what you would want. If you have a certain combination, like a broken... Like, one of your characters has, like, some ridiculously good loss, then, I mean, this is just really good. But this could, like, fundamentally just change scenarios, like make them kind of crazy. Even in scenarios where you don't necessarily need to like escape, you just need to do something else. If it's a big scenario where maybe you need to go from one side to the other side and then back again, you know, just the amount of movement and turns you may save by having the teleportation pads might be worth it. Plus, remember that these things are, they're not like summons, so they have infinite health. You know, they just stay on the board forever once you play them. This is a tough choice, I think, between the two. All right, level 4. Dangerous Contraption. Summon Battle Bot. Heal 7, move 3, attack 3, 3 XP. I mean, as far as summons goes, this is pretty aggressively costed. I think I would have liked to have seen some like effect that this had or something to make it just a little bit juicier. But its raw stats are good. 10 initiative is excellent too. That's our earliest initiative so far we've seen, I think. Move 4, grant 1 adjacent ally, shield 1. That's very, very solid usable ability for sure. I mean, a 10 initiative move 4 is just like, I mean, you just don't get value like that anymore, you know? That's a hard, it's hard to give up. The combination of initiative plus good move Because most of the time when you want to go early, it's because you have like an important ability that you need to land, or, you know, some control ability or an attack that will perfectly line up. And the movement just gives you the flexibility to ensure you always get into the right position to do it. So like these two things together are just, oh, chef's kiss. This is what you want. And this as well can be very good. I mean, if you think about doing it to an ally who then needs, it's the grant ability again, which is nice. It's not just adjacent, so you just give it to them. So if they then decide to move away and do their own thing, that's all good. They still have that shield 1. They can then run around, do their own thing with that shield 1 on them. Yes, excellent. Proximity Mine. This is the one that Proximity Mine used to be a level 1 card, right? It was a burn, I think. It was like a 6 damage burn, and you got XP when it triggered, which was kind of a bit weird. But thematically made sense. But I think Proximity Mine before, it physically had to trigger to get the XP, and I think it was like a 6 damage trap. Enemies adjacent to the target gain muddle, and attack 4, range 3. That's super value. I like the fact that, I wonder if this must have been a conscious choice. It must have been a conscious choice to put a 10 initiative and a 14 initiative next to each other, because the other problem here is that a lot of the time with leveling up decisions, you can always just take the easy way out of a choice, which is that, hey, take the thing with the lowest initiative. If in doubt, that was my rule of thumb. Like, if you're ever really in doubt and you have no clue what to do, just take the lowest initiative, because you just, generally speaking, going before the enemies most of the time is beneficial. And again, you can usually use these for default move 2s and don't feel that bad about it. But this is interesting. 10 and 14, there's not much in it. There's really not much in it, if anything at all. The 14 initiative, as we know, create 1/2 damage immobilized trap in an empty hex within range 2. Ooh. Oh, that's really good with the repulse gun, right? Go late, maybe the previous round, get nice and close, and then on the next round, go early, go 14, and just go, yeah, put a nice immobilized trap down, and then push them directly into it. I guess you would have disadvantage in that situation. Hook gun works too. Hook gun works, but it's kind of well, actually it's not anti-synergy, because you can now pull up to, right? So I guess you could just pull them like a little bit, just not the full way. But I like the fact that it kind of works with 2 of our cards in a way. So it makes it a little bit more flexible. I think that's another tough choice of 4. I'm not a huge fan of this summon, although it does have some nice synergy with some of the kind of ally-based effects that we have, like enhancement field and stuff like that. I guess if you were doing more healy, like if you're playing a bit more of a support healy tinkerer, then you probably do want this, because realistically that gives you another body to heal. So like your multiple target stuff is good, and also your like potent potables bottom could be really good. Also, of course, you've got this, which is like kind of like in a support ability anyway. And then maybe you can keep it alive, and then you just kind of rely on the battle bot to do your damage for you while you run around healing it and supporting everybody else. Whereas I think if you're playing a bit more of a tricksy tinkerer, messing around with push, pull, kind of messing with the enemy, then I think Proximity Mine is probably a no-brainer. On to level 5. Noxious Vials. We got attack 1, range 3, wound, and disarm. I mean, that is legit. It's interesting that it's kind of like, hey guys, we know you like to put wound on stun shot. We're not going to let you kind of quite do that, but we're going to give you like the next best thing, but you're going to have to wait until level 5. Like we appreciate that this is quite like, you know, it's like a tongue-in-cheek kind of like in-joke maybe. I don't know. But it's like we kind of want to give that, but we don't want it to be like so good that it... So for example, like because it's disarm now instead of stun, it means that heal abilities can happen, summon abilities can happen, you know, all of that other stuff. But mainly the heal ability, I guess, is the one, because then actually, well, they're just going to heal the wound off, or it won't be quite as effective. The bottom is attack 3, range 3 poison. I think this is the same ability as this was before, I think. Pretty sure. It was really strong before. Maybe it wasn't gain 1 XP for each enemy targeted. Maybe it was like just a flat 2 XP or something. The fact you could potentially combo this into Net Shooter, because Net Shooter's 19 initiative. You could just go, yep, attack all these guys for 3 and poison them. All right, then I'm going to attack them all now for 4 and immobilize them. I mean, yes, that's a double burn turn, but you're playing the Tinkerer. You can absolutely do a double burn turn to get ahead. Disintegration. Now, this was my favorite card on the Tinkerer before. So, kill all enemies in the target area whose current hit point value is less than or equal to 5. Gain 1 XP for each enemy killed. Now, I think this is pretty much unchanged, except for it's bigger. I think maybe it has 1 extra hex. The hit point value thing, I think was 5 before. It was always 5. Okay, so it was 5 before. So it's basically they've given you the enhancement for free. 36 initiative, attack 3, range 3 on the bottom. Also pretty decent anyway. Well, very decent actually. Especially in combination with something like Toxic Bolt. You can then just like poison the enemy, then immediately attack them again for another 3. Seems pretty good. Level 5 is also kind of tough. What's kind of interesting about this is that there's no like heal card here. Although I think you would kind of, Noxious Vials is kind of like the, I feel like this is the card that you would probably play if you were playing a bit more supporty. Because of course it's kind of, it's for the most part, takes an enemy out of action for that round. The initiative sucks though. Disintegration Beam has always been a card that I've loved to play, so I'll probably end up playing Disintegration Beam, but the bottom of Noxious Vials is also just really good. We got a surprise here, chat. We got level 6. So we got Invigorating Aerosol, heal 3, range 2, move 2, heal 4, range 2, create air. Now, this is very similar to the level, is it like the level 8 or level 9, which was Curative Aerosol? So Invigorating Aerosol rather than Curative Aerosol, which I really like that ability. Our top move is always going to be pretty premium, especially when you have a lot of like bottom like buffs and things. Like we have enhancement field and stuff like that, right? So putting this all together in one thing is really good. And this is better than what Curative Aerosol was. I think Curative Aerosol might have done like a little AoE heal at the end of it, if I'm remembering rightly. Maybe not, but the values of this are great. Really good. Heal 2, range 2, then move 2, and repeat basically for the original. I see. You love double heal cards for poisons? Yeah, for poisons as well. Being able to clear it and then immediately still get a nice heal off is also going to be good. You could also play it with the bottom of Potent Potables on the same turn, and it wouldn't be that bad, right? Suddenly then, okay, we're getting extra targets, guys. Like, that's pretty sick. Then we're doing like heal 3, target 2, range 2, move 2, heal 4, target 2, range 2, create air. At the end of this, in your next 4 turns, perform a heal 1, range 5, strengthen, bless, ward, and the new one, which I can't remember, safeguard. Safeguard, that's what it's called, right? Yeah, with the extra target, range 5, with potent potables, damn. Do you get all 4 of the conditions, or you choose one? You get all 4 of the conditions, right? Yeah, you get all 4. I don't know why for a second there I thought you could choose. There's almost too many conditions. I was like, nah, that can't be right. That's pretty crazy and works incredibly well against certain enemies that like poison you or wound you. 5 blesses is kind of nuts, but then when you think about potent potables, I mean, it could be as many as 9 blesses. This is a really nice, like, big combo. Like, you will feel really powerful by doing this. This really, like, empowers healers, for sure. If you like to play a support build, and that's kind of like the way that you like to play the game, and that's, you know, your kind of role that you like to play in your party, this is one hell of a card. Like, this is kind of ridiculous. The thing is, though, is that this is, oh man, the top, though. If you can keep using the top over and over and over again, that's tough. Like, when do you make the decision, hey, I want to jump to this? That's really good. Okay. Ooh, auto turret. I used to like auto turret. At the end of this, in your next 3 turns, perform the following twice. Attack 2, range 5, pierce 1. Twice? The following twice. So you get 2 attack 2s, range 5, pierce 1. It's kind of worded a little bit strange. Is there a reason why this isn't just templated as attack 2, target 2, range 5? Is that because you specifically want it to work with like single target specific like items or other cards or things? Can attack the same enemy twice. Yes, that's a good point too. So this is 4, 8, 12, 16. It's a pretty low value attack, but it's got PS1, so it kind of gets through some of that problem. If it was a PS2, I think I'd be like really excited about it. But again, this feels very powerful. Living Bones Killer, pair of Enhancement Field. Yeah, Enhancement Field. Oh, that would be actually really sick if you put down the top of Enhancement Field and then just rattle this off. That's actually really good. I like the way that this character feels a bit more combo-y as well. You've actually got like some really nice combos across a few different avenues. Like you've kind of got the trap stuff going on with pull and push. You've got, you know, you've got big heal stuff going on with some crazy combinations with potent pokeballs and stuff like that. And then you got something like this, which could work really well with Enhancement Field. Tink definitely is cooler. Yeah, it's a big improvement for the Tinkerer for sure. Big improvement. 32 initiative, ward, range 3. Move 2, poison, range 3. I mean, that's also pretty good. This would be a really good ability at 2-player. Like this bottom half of this ability, if you're playing 2 mercenaries, this is like just excellent, really. Because you're just mitigating some damage. You're poisoning like one figure. You'll probably then be able to like attack it yourself. Especially if you maybe took something like Noxious Vials. I mean, 32 is not a great initiative. I guess you could go late, but you could basically just stack a bunch of negative conditions on something. I think level 6, it's another tough choice. This feels like it's really interesting to have, I guess what you would call like the equivalent of a broken damage combo, but in a insane heal combo. Does that make sense? Like most of the time, like there's a couple of like really great heal combos, but they're not, I mean, they're good, but they're not like on the same level or even on the same like page as some of the damage ones. But this feels like this is putting up with the big boys right here. So Murderous Contraption, level 7, summon Killbot, 8 health, move 4, attack 3. Oh, and it's got a nice little pattern here. Well, I kind of like that. This is Murderous Contraption was similar, but like it didn't have this pattern for sure originally, and it didn't have as much movement. I think it might have only had like move 2 actually, maybe move 3. Love the pips on every quality of the summon. Only takes 750 gold to put +1 attack on that bad boy. All for the low price of 750 gold. They lowered the enhancement cost for summons though, right? Quite substantially. In digital they did, and I presume they will also do it here. It seems like a pretty decent summon to me, guys. I mean, it looks pretty good. Can we reliably keep it alive? Can we reliably get it to do this 2-hex thing? Maybe a summon that would be a little bit better at higher player counts just for the enemy density. Quite possibly. But still, if you keep this thing alive and it just keeps going and going and going, that's a lot of value. I did notice when I played the Mind Thief, I managed to keep the level, like the level 5 rat up the whole time, apart from I think right at the very end, and that was pretty big. Keeping one summon alive that has like some kind of added benefit seems like it could be quite possible. So it avoids retaliate. Yes, it can avoid retaliate. if say for example, there was only one enemy on the board. In this example, there's only one enemy. There's not two, there's only one. If it wasn't already next to it, let's say it needs to move to get to target, then yes, it would move until it can target using the fewest amount of movements. So it would leave this space empty to then attack the enemy here. So yes, it would avoid retaliate, but it kind of avoids retaliate in a little bit of a janky way. But anyway, Killbot seems pretty good, I think. Like, it's an improvement on what it was in terms of like its potential attack upside. The stats remain mostly the same. A little bit of an improvement, I think, on the movement, but yeah, it's mostly the same. This is a big change, though. Makes it a lot more interesting. Makes poison and stuff a lot more interesting, too, for this character, that's for sure. 84 is late initiative. It's a summon. And the bottom is heal 5 at range 3. That is a huge bottom heal. Massive. It's a definite improvement on some of the other heals. And obviously, we could maybe turn this into a target 2, and then that's also massive. Pernicious Fogger. That's a new name. Place the Pernicious Fogger token in an empty hex within range 3. At the end of each of their turns, all allies and enemies within range 1 of the token suffer 2 damage. I don't really like the allies part of this. This seems maybe a little bit weak, but maybe not. Remember that this doesn't take up a space, right? This thing just sits there, so enemies can walk on top of it. Allies can walk on top of it. Your summons can walk on top of it. Drop it in the middle of ranged, high shielded enemies. Yeah, it would be great against something like Living Spirits or Sun Demons, Flame Demons. But it's slow, right? Especially at level 7, it's kind of slow. 2 suffer damage on a level 7 card is pretty mid. Yeah, you've got to kind of think like how many turns or how many enemies need to take damage from this to make it worthwhile, you know? Like, at what point does this become like, okay, this card's like brilliant? You'd have to go like as much as like 10 to 12 damage at this point. So you're looking at maybe 3 to 4 enemies taking 2 damage twice, right? The end of turn is the only negative thing. So more damage than wound, but would kill after they acted. Well, I guess the idea here is that you could, in theory, place it in front of you and then run away, and then they would kind of like walk towards it, right? If they were focusing you behind it, there's ways that you can also kind of just trick enemies into walking into it. But I agree that at the end of each of their turns is a little bit awkward, because then it also has anti-synergy with some of our push and pull abilities. Because of course, if we could pull an enemy next to it, and then they took the damage at the start of their turn, that's great. But if it's at the end of their turn, maybe they move away. I mean, you can still, like, for example, pull a ranged enemy in, and then they would probably stay there as long as they have range of you. They would probably stay there forever. So just constantly taking 2 damage at the end of their turns. But it's a little bit slow and a little bit clunky. I don't know. Thematically, I like the card. I'm just not maybe convinced that the numbers are all quite there. And the fact that it damages allies as well could be a bit detrimental if you have like a tank, or you've got like your certain party combo, or some of the summons that you already have has some anti-synergy with that. But then I don't necessarily feel like you'd be picking this card if you did pick the summons. And like I say, the other level 7 is a summon. So if you are going for more of a summonsy build, then you're probably picking the other level 7 anyway. You think this is a bad level 7 card, Wing? I don't think it's great. The bottom is move 3, strengthen, range 3. So you got a bottom self strengthen on this card. I mean, maybe that's the real MVP here. I mean, maybe we should just ignore everything. I mean, this is a bottom strengthen. And you can target yourself. You can target an ally. It's very versatile. And it's move 3 to boot. I mean, maybe that's the real story here. The real story here is you've got a move 3 strengthen. Here's the wound stun card. Cryonic Snare. Create 1 4 damage wound stun trap in an empty hex within range 2. Create ice. 15 initiative. Not too bad. And we could push an enemy into it if we took the the repeller gun at level 2, right? The repulsor. We could, in theory, go this and then go immediately push an enemy into it. This is a fantastic trap. I mean, it's 4 damage. The wound is going to make sure that it's really 5. And the stun is fantastic too. If you position this in a good way and the enemy will move onto it on their turn, because they've got no other way to move, they're basically just going to completely screw themselves. The bottom is move 4, ground 1 adjacent ally, retaliate 2. That's also just pretty decent. Although the first instance of retaliate that we've had on this character, I guess thematically it kind of makes sense. This may just be like a 50 initiative move 4 and like that's not particularly great at level 8. Kind of interested to see what the other one's going to be. Harsh Stimulants. Okay, Harsh Stimulants was a fun card before. Ground 1 ally within range 3. So for 2 damage, do an attack 2, move 2, attack 6. Oh, that's cool. Okay. So basically we pump it up an ally. They're going to take 2 damage, but then they're going to get to do a move to attack 6. And like, I mean, taking damage is nothing. This character pumps out so much healing that it doesn't really matter. This will combo really well with certain characters and certain abilities. Like, for example, Enhancement Field, you could put Enhancement Field bottom down, and then you could just grant an ally the ability to move up to you and do the attack. And then they'll be attacking for 7. That's pretty good. And then they're in the right position, so then maybe they can combo off and do their own thing. This is the type of ability I feel like when you're playing solo and you have open information, you can really use this to have incredibly powerful turns. But maybe if you're playing more closed information or you're playing like multiplayer, getting like the perfect setup might not happen as regularly as you'd like. But maybe once you get things going. It's really good though. The bottom is control 1 enemy within range 3, an attack +2, target all adjacent enemies, then that enemy gains stun. This reminds me a lot of an old Mind Thief ability. It used to do this, huh? Didn't it? Or it killed the enemy or something? I can't remember. Void Warden has something similar to that bomb as well. It's taken a while maybe for the summon build to kind of come online, but then you got 7 and 8. You got 2 great cards that would work really well with it. I guess suffering 2 damage is going to be more impactful for a summon though than it's going to be for like a player, right? Because you only got 8 health and you can't burn a card to damage or whatever to keep yourself alive. So I guess you'd have to, you could do this though, and you could just like use a bottom heal or something to get it its health back. I feel like the bottom of this card is also pretty good. It depends on what enemy it is. There's obviously going to be certain enemies where if you can do this, this is actually like nuts. You know, if you have an enemy that naturally applies wound or poison, I'm not sure if Brittle is in this game or not, but all of those kinds of things, or Curse, even Curse would be great, right? Move in, attack all adjacent enemies, and just dish out like a bunch of like curses to the enemies. That kind of stuff could be really, really good. So depending on the enemy that you're facing, this could be great, which is perfect for a burn ability, really. I think most people are going to go for Harsh Stimulants. Right, level 9s then, let's do it. Gravity Bomb. Place the Gravity Bomb token in an empty hex within range 4. At the end of your turn, perform pull 2, target all enemies within range 2 of the token, pull towards the token. Then any enemy occupying the hex occupying the token suffers 5 damage. All enemies occupying hexes adjacent to the token suffer 1 damage, and you discard this card. Ooh, now this is a level 9, guys. I am liking this. Non-loss? Yeah, non-loss as well. This is fun. This is really fun. At the end of your next turn as well. That's kind of interesting. So this would be a really good setup card, right? Like before... Oh no, because you place the token when you play the card. Okay. So you couldn't like play it before you went into a room. But it's kind of interesting. Well, I mean, I guess you could put it like next to the door, but it probably wouldn't get anything. This could be quite a good turn 1 type play, right? Because then you can kind of just like see what the enemy's doing, put it in a nice place. Range 4 is quite a decent distance away. And the interesting thing with this is that you can kind of like pull enemies away from you, pull enemies towards you, you can use it just to pull enemies into interesting patterns. You can use it in lots of different ways. And let's say that you were quite smart with the way that you placed this, and you got the 5 damage, and you got, let's say, 2 to 3 more figures, right? You're looking at like 8 damage through shields for a non-loss kind of effect. And it has a little bit of like pseudo control in what it is doing as well. If it gets optimistic for a pull-in range 2, say maybe 2 extra hits. Depends on, yeah, I mean, maybe. I guess it depends on, again, the number of mercenaries you're playing, right? Playing 4 and you're playing like against a swarming, it'd be really, really good against like a swarming enemy style scenario. Like if you're against like vermilings or against imps, those kinds of like low point value but swarming style enemies. You don't know that it would be easy to get 4 to 5 targets in range 2 of an empty hex. I think 4 to 5 would be maybe pushing it. I feel like getting like 3 enemies. I feel like here is, 4 enemies total, 3 maybe with the adjacencies. I think could be pretty doable in smaller rooms. If you're playing 4 mercenaries, sure. Also, it's the kind of thing where players deciding ambiguity for enemy movement is incredibly important for stuff like this, right? So again, like, if there's ambiguity, you got to use it to your advantage, where maybe you wouldn't necessarily use it to your advantage, which again is a little bit gamey. Because I liked in digital the fact that enemies just randomly picked a path. I think that was actually like, it is a better way of doing it. It feels weird that players have the ability to kind of influence what the enemy will do slightly because of the way that you have to, because of it's the rules of the game. I actually preferred it a lot in digital where they just did it. It played quicker. It meant that the enemies were a bit more unpredictable, so it could be quite interesting. It did hurt certain characters like 2 minis and heavy summoning characters, of course, but I felt like general gameplay experience was better. The bottom is attack 2, target 3, range 3, immobilize. It's a net shooter. It's net shooter without the XP. It's reusable. It's 1 less attack. There's no enhancement potential, but enhancing a level 9 card's probably out of the question anyway. I mean, the bottom of this card, I think that might be a little bit awkward for Gravity Bomb, to be honest. The bottom is so strong that perhaps Gravity Bomb top is relegated again to situational use. I think it's interesting that for the last 2 of these kind of contraptions, or whatever it is that we're calling them, these tokens, I feel like the last 2 have been slightly underwhelming. But maybe that's because we haven't had a chance to play with them. It could just be that we're basing this purely off of our initial thoughts and feelings, and that playing with them, maybe we'll find that they're actually a little bit better than we're thinking. But the bottom of this is so strong that you're probably going to use this a lot of the time anyway. Chimeric formula, here we go. Actually, no, it's not. Is it the same? Maybe. No, doesn't look like it is. Oh no, it is. It is kind of the same. Okay, Chimeric formula, heal 3, target 1 ally, range 3. Strengthen, bless. The target of the heal ability may immediately play up to 2 cards from their hand, performing at most 1 top and 1 bottom action of the cards. Free Ring of Haste? Free Ring of Brutality? Yes, please. I mean, it's a full free turn, which is broken, basically. You know, it is. I mean, all of the stupid things you used to be able to get up to were kind of based, a lot of it was based around this, about taking extra turns. And they're strengthened. Yeah, and they're strengthened, and they get a bless too. You think this would be your choice, the level 9s? I mean, this one seems to be the more fun ability of the 2, I would say. It's not a burn either, it's just straight up. Here you go. Something like this, you'd think nowadays this would be like 2 level 1 cards or something, which would be, to be clear, would be kind of dumb anyway, because it's a level 9 card. It goes to reason that probably other people in your party are fairly high levels as well. So it will be kind of weird. But the fact that you could basically go, hey, get a free play of something. And imagine if you have some kind of buff on another character, right? That you just need to be able to get it out. Like this screams combo. When you see a character that just wants to play, right, if only I could play 3 cards in a round. If I could play these 3 cards in a round, I could do this insane combo. And I can see what they've done here. They have, prevented me from doing that by putting them on the right halves of separate cards and stuff like that to try and prevent players from doing it. And then you see something like this. It's like, whoop, yes please. The bottom is one ally within range 3 may recover one card from the lost pile of one ally adjacent to them. So this is pretty similar to what it previously used to be. However, I don't think it needed to be in the burn, did it? Yeah, it's kind of the same, but worded a bit more kind of cleanly. Give unstable upheaval to the Mind Thief to apply a bunch of augment effects. Yeah, I mean, there's probably going to be like some other ridiculous things to give though, right? And there's going to be some, you like at this point in time at level 9, if your allies are close to you in terms of leveling, you're going to have probably something better than unstable upheaval to give. But yeah, there's going to be some crazy stuff to do with it. My personal pick here is going to be probably Chimeric Formula from the two. The top seems really kind of busted. And the bottom is, well, original Chimeric Formula, which is great. It was always fun to play around with, and it was interesting to theory craft and strategize your party around it. The last thing to look at is, should we look at perks for a second? So we have replace one -2 card with one +0 card. Nice. Good to get rid of the -2. Replace one -1 card with one +0. Heal 1, target 1 ally card. That's got no range to it as well. That's pretty nice. Replace one +0 card with one +1 wound card. This is nice. Extra damage. I like the fact that you can get rid of 3 of the -1s. And the -2, which means your deck's going to be pretty good. Then we can add the wounds in, and the poisons, and potentially the immobilizers. Add 1+ to strengthen target 1 ally card. That's also pretty sweet. Ignore scenario effects and add 1 +0. Heal 1 ally card. That's nice. I've always been a big fan of this change that they've done, which is to make the ignore scenario effects perk just more interesting. And this definitely makes it more interesting. Once each scenario, one adjacent ally may use one of your potion items during their turn without it becoming lost. What? Oh, dude. I mean, that's not something that I think you probably want at level 1. Because perhaps, like, the power level of the small items, well, potions specifically, the potions are maybe they're not good enough to warrant taking this straight away. I mean, I don't know though, because it depends on if you get like, you know, even like a lesser stamina where we can get back a level 1 would be probably pretty worth it. That's a really cool perk. I really thematically like where that's at. I really like what it does. Whenever you perform an action with a burn, you may create any element. So you get a wild element generation of your choice. That was actually super good early on. Because what happens with a lot of characters early on in the game is that you generally struggle with your kind of element economy. Because perhaps you do have some really strong abilities, but getting those elements is tricky. Or perhaps you need to wait until like level 3 or something, and then you get like a nice ability that you can reuse to create an element. Like, it's quite a common slowdown mechanic that I've seen, and I'm not always a huge fan of it. Because like the way that I see it is that a few characters will fall into this pattern, which I don't really like in Gloomhaven sometimes, where they will, for example, they'll say, hey, you are a character who's really good with fire. Great. Okay, I'm really good with fire. At level 1, here are all of these great abilities that consume fire, but you only have one card that creates fire. Or maybe you have like a burn that creates fire or something like that. And you're like, okay. And then what they kind of do is they create the problem at level 1, being I have an imbalance here of generating versus consuming. So without any help from an ally or items or whatever, I'm not able to quite efficiently put it all together. But then they kind of sell you the solution at levels 2, 3, and 4, where they go, hey, here's a move 3, create fire at level 2. And you're like, you know what I mean? I'm not a huge fan. Like, to me, that's a little bit cheeky. Like, kind of, it makes the character feel better as you level up, but it's kind of like, yeah, you've kind of artificially created a problem there. Whenever you perform a long rest, you may perform a heal to range 3. That is actually super good as well. Even if you're just healing yourself, because then you're just healing for 4. Tankerer returns. But of course, just being able to heal somebody else. The interesting thing with your character, though, is that because you have so many more cards than often your other classes, when you rest is going to be much different to everybody else. So, for example, a room could be cleared, and everyone's like, oh, right, I'm going to long rest. You could be like, I got 2 more turns left. Like, I don't know what you guys are doing, right? So in that situation, you know, maybe you move towards the door, and then you pick up some loot. Then maybe you move towards the door. The other team's like done their long rest, they're refreshed, they're ready to go. Then maybe you just long rest near the door, and then they can go and open the door, and then maybe they get hit, and then maybe you heal them, and then you're back in the fight, right? So it's interesting because the dynamic of when the Tinkerer actually long rests is quite a lot different than other classes because of the amount of cards. Of course, you can burn cards to kind of get yourself, you know, in sync with everybody else, of course. That will happen. But it is a case that you will more likely have more turns than your fellow mercenaries. So you're picking when to long rest is going to be interesting for you. You like the element perk as a support option? Yeah. It also works with things that are not attacks, right? It's important to say. Just say just with burns, stamina booster, right? You could burn stamina booster bottom, recover your ally's amazing card, create the element that they want at the same time to be able to use in combination with that card. I mean, that's pretty nice, right? That's a really nice little sequence of play there. Hey, I'm going to give you your best card back, and I'm going to create the element that you need to play that card. So masteries are a new thing from Frosthaven, but essentially if you complete them, you get a perk. So for an entire scenario during each of your turns, give an enemy a negative condition, give an ally a positive condition, heal an ally, or grant an ally a shield. Probably really easy to do. Maybe not super easy at level 1. Well, I don't know, because like you've got like an attack 3 with model on it at level 1. That counts as a negative condition. You've got plenty of heals. You can grant shields with the this one seems super easy, actually. The second one is career long. Okay, perform 11 different burn actions. Second mastery, nice idea, but awful to track. Yeah, I guess it kind of is. In theory, can you do it from level 1? Probably, right? All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. You have to burn, you can burn every single one of your level 1 cards. Well, I guess you can know what you're going to try and do on the first scenario, right? Both of these masteries seem super easy. I wonder if this is just kind of a little bit of nod to like make the Tinkerer like just super simple to play. First 2 scenarios, you should be easy. Over 2 scenarios. Yeah, over 2 scenarios, absolutely should be very easy. But I know that a lot of people in like Frosthaven, when they do the masteries, they generally just like go, yes, I'm going to do the mastery this scenario. Tell everybody in your party that's what we're going to do, and then go and do it, you know? All right, well, there you go. I wasn't expecting to do like a full review of the Tinkerer today, but here we are. Several hours later. And it's, I mean, it looks good to me, guys. I mean, what do you guys think? I think it looks good. I feel like a couple of these things we've been a little bit underwhelmed with the higher level ones, but I think the ones earlier on were pretty good. And they might be better than we're giving them credit for. And to be fair to them, a lot of the time, the bottom actions are actually pretty decent regardless. So it's not like, it's kind of like quite a low risk one. Obviously at level 9 though, really you want to be taking some really splashy effect. And this obviously is that. You think the Tinks is like a total badass now? Definitely a lot more powerful. Way more powerful. All of the numbers seem to have just been increased. You know, every number has kind of gone up that needed to go up. The only thing that's really been removed from the character is stun shot, really. If you look at it, that's the only thing that has been really kind of taken away as something that was considered to be a bit too good. But everything else has basically gotten a bit of a buff. I like the fact that there's more of a trap build going on here as well. I like the fact that there are, you know, good viable traps to actually use and try and abuse. I really like that right the way from level 1. The summons, I would say, are still maybe a little bit too vanilla, apart from maybe the big one. Apart from maybe the murderous contraption. I still feel like maybe the summons are a little bit too vanilla, but then, you know, this is supposed to be a starting character. It's not supposed to be, you know, an advanced character. Maybe that's just fine, you know? Maybe that is actually just fine. But I will say this, I really like the fact that there is more scope for combinations and things with Tinkerer now, whereas Tinkerer before felt very much like you were kind of, it kind of felt like that you were just supporting everybody else, right? That everything that you did was to unlock the power of another character. You weren't really, your power was unlocking other people's powers, or the potential for them to have power, which is sometimes an enjoyable way to play. Some people enjoy that, but it just meant that it was really like, you know, the kind of damage output for the character was incredibly strong at level 1. I still believe that the Tinkerer is one of the strongest level 1 characters, or it was from original Gloomhaven. So I still feel like level 1, it's got so many good attacks and a good suite of abilities that it's really hard to mess up. It's just a very easy, straightforward character to play, very forgiving, great attacks. I think it's one of the strongest characters. Also, the hand size of 12 makes it, you know, incredibly forgiving and easy for new players. If you make a mistake and you have to burn a card to damage, it's not the end of the world. You can kind of get away with it. It's just a great character to learn the game on. And they've kind of kept that for the most part. Like, the abilities do seem quite simple, but then you have some really, really interesting combinations of things, as they've kind of like given the character a little bit more of like a cutting edge, a little bit more of like, you know, sharpened his blade. He doesn't have any blades, but you know what I mean. They made him a bit nasty. You know, he's got some tricks that will hurt a lot if you pull them all off together. You know, it becomes an actual serious contender as a damage dealing character. All those heals being buffed. Yeah, and the thing is that you don't need to play all of these heals. You only need to play like 1 or 2 of them. You just pick out the best 1 or 2. You know, maybe you're thinking like, you know, hey, instead of going for a repulsor gun, maybe you just get this guy. This is a great heal. Don't wanna go with stamina booster at level 3? That's fine. Teleportation pad is kind of bonkers. Major props to Gripe. Yep, Gripe and Themris as well. Big shout outs to Themris as well, for, you know, they're absolutely nailing this so far with everything that we've seen. Not that we really had any doubt that they wouldn't, but it's been really good. All the changes have been positive, good, and everything is looking great.
I think still, yeah.
That's the blessing from Chat. That's the blessing from.
Isaac, at this point, can we get your approval to add an additional attack modifier deck for allies in the digital version?